And welcome. I'm going to be talking about addictions in this episode. And this has come up as a recent discussion with a client, and it has come up with others previously in the past and also with myself. This may create a little bit of controversy and discussion. I hope it does. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to share anything of your own as well, leave a message here in the description box. I would love to hear it because this is a very real aspect of our existence and a lot of the challenges that we may face throughout our life. Addictions are very strong. They can come up in the form of substances, drinking, drugs, but also in avoidance. Even addictions with certain cycles in our life or certain relationships, for example. But we're going to talk about specifically in this one, we're going to be talking about the addiction with substances. So alcohol and drugs perhaps, but mostly focusing on alcohol in this one because I find that this can be a very common theme with a lot of us. And I'm going to hopefully shed some light on this topic because I find that we can often put so much pressure on ourselves when we do something that we feel is not right. And I want to totally break the pattern in our subconscious and in our belief system that there is such a thing as bad or wrong, because that does not exist. We come from a lineage historically of living under rules and regulations, and I don't want to get into a whole other topic on its own, but we have a lot of fear embedded within ourselves of what is right and what is wrong. And we have this systemic experience or the systemic belief in our reality and with life and with us being here in any kind of environment or any kind of situation, that there are rules and correct ways of doing things and wrong ways of doing things. And to a point, there is some truth with that, just as far as how we're acting or behaving, what is going to create a positive outcome, what is going to create a negative outcome. But there's really no such thing as bad and wrong in the way that we're used to. And this is sort of breaking through some of those beliefs that we have really hardwired within ourselves, that if we do something that we have as an unconscious pattern, as maybe an impulse, then we're doing something bad. And then we carry that shame and that guilt upon us after that action, and it creates an even more difficult experience within ourselves. So specifically talking about alcohol, for example, all right, so if we have, and I'm going to reference actually a few different aspects of our life that I hope will help you possibly connect the dots. If you drink, if you do drugs, and there's no judgment here on my side, I'm going to talk about my own story through this as part of an example, because I have really, really, really worked hard in this particular area within my life, but also with other people. And first of all, I want to address where the addiction might come from. Where is this need or this desire? And addiction is going to resonate with everyone a little bit differently. So having a glass of wine, or you could have more than a glass of wine, maybe once a week, is that an addiction, or is that something that you just enjoy doing? So an addiction is when there's a need and a desire, a very burning desire, uncontrollable desire, an unconscious desire to fixate on something that is going to create a separation from reality that we're in. The addiction is a very powerful experience that we have within ourselves, a very uncontrollable, unconscious pattern that we have within ourselves, which I'll get to in a moment. But also, too, I should mention that at the end of this, I am going to read some passages from the Michael Lincoln's book, addressing the patterns of addiction. Again, when I look at this and when I work with other people, there's absolutely no judgment towards people's preference or towards their experiences that they're going through, okay? First of all, we have to understand that these are experiences, not to be hard on ourselves and not to put shame onto ourselves or guilt onto ourselves because of what we are experiencing. That is the number one, okay? And I am going to go into that a little bit later, but at the very end, I am going to go into some passages. Maybe it will help clear some for you if you are experiencing this as well. Or shed some light on some of the behavioral patterns that you might be experiencing. But first of all, I want to go back into what I was originally going to say, where I was originally going to start, where it's really important to look at our past patterns, and this is how we understand and decode our subconscious, is really understanding how we were raised, some of the maybe challenges that we've gone through, some of the patterns that we may have observed from our parents or caregivers or peers, or even if we've gone through a lot of trauma in our life and a lot of difficulties, there may be a need and a desire to detach from life, because life can be really difficult. And if we've gone through a lot of trauma in our life, a lot of difficulties, there could be a very powerful sense of distrust towards the universe and towards our cosmic connection with all. Okay, so we come into this life form as soul beings, as pure light, as a reflection of love source, all that is. We are connected. We are all connected. We're connected with each other, to each other. We're connected with the cosmos. We are all connected. We're made of energy. We are all part of that universal flow. And so when we come into this life form, we go through a lot of hits. We take a lot of hits. We observe a lot of painful things. We have painful memories. We go through traumas. We have physical, mental, emotional abuse. There's a lot that we can undergo in this lifetime. And oftentimes through that process, we can lose trust, or the pain can be so great that we may want to disassociate from it. We may want to numb out from life altogether. And that's where the addictions start to come in, because the addictions create an altered reality from the true reality and the true experiences that we are in, which are painful, right? So some of those experiences can be very painful. And if we haven't released a lot of those pains and wounds and subconscious patterns and experiences in healthy ways, then it's easy to turn to alternative. It's easy to turn to substances, to detach from reality and to numb out and to disassociate and to create a new reality that is temporary. And I'm sure if you are familiar with drinking or substances of any kind, it is very temporary. And I have gone through all of this, by the way. I've gone through hard substances. I've gone through alcoholism my entire life. I had alcoholism in my family. I had a lot of abuse around alcohol, or the energy of that was created because of alcoholism was very difficult. It was very toxic. So naturally, because of that pain and because of what I observed, that was my go-to, and that is a family pattern that I have had to work through. But also because of the pain that I had gone through in general from my early life, it was just very, very an easy step for me to incorporate into my life, to detach from what I felt was very painful. And I didn't know how to cope at that time. I didn't know how to work through my emotions. I didn't know how to understand my life. So the best option was the substances, to detach from what was painful and what was unknown for me. Because also too, when we are not in alignment with who we really are, we can also turn to substances to try and in a way find that, because what we might do in our life, the person who we really are on a core level, our true self, becomes very clouded and very lost in our experiences or from our experiences, and we can establish barriers within ourselves that block our true self from fully connecting with our whole self, right? So we end up suppressing part of ourself, ignoring, numbing out, to deal with life, right? So, but what we're doing is we're detaching more from our true self. So it's a bit of an interweb of experiences, beliefs, and it can become a bit of a downward spiral. So addictions can, yes, definitely prevent us from manifesting to our fullest. It can prevent us from letting life in. It can prevent us from letting love in, from experiencing love in its pure form, from experiencing life in its pure form, and from connecting with the cosmos, connecting with the universe, connecting with all. And so this is where the messaging gets very difficult, especially if you're on your spiritual journey. If you are drinking, if you're doing substances, there can be excessive guilt that is put on self for doing this, because in theory, and this is where I'm going to completely go into what I believe and my experiences. In theory, there is a way to work towards a higher state of being. And that is by being clean, is by eating organic food, which is great. You can be vegan if you like. If you really want to tap into your consciousness, or into, I should say, your higher self, or intuition, for example, try not to eat garlic, try not to drink coffee, don't drink alcohol, don't eat meat. Stay away from stimulants or things that are going to disrupt your pure energy source. All right. Is completely valid. It is completely valid, and there is truth to that. And for myself, I stopped eating meat. I don't eat garlic. I stopped drinking coffee. I was telling a friend of mine, I went on a road trip a couple months ago, and I had a matcha latte first thing in the morning before driving out. And I was so wired. I had such a buzz off of matcha latte like I have never had before, because I don't have caffeine anymore. I don't have stimulants really in my diet or in my food. I don't have a lot of sugar. If anything is dark chocolate, because I really am able now to connect with energy, and I'm very, very, very sensitive. And because I've cut out a lot of stimulants, I've become more sensitive with my emotions, with feelings, with people, with life, and it keeps growing actually. And so my gift, which is a bit of a blessing and a curse all in one, is the sensitivity, is the ability to feel energy and feel others and feel life and interpret it in a way to give it to you, to give to others, or to help others, help them heal, guide them, offer this content as well. When I tap into these experiences, then I can have the ability to translate it outwardly. It is very difficult as well, because the energy can be very strong, and it can be very, very hard to navigate and very difficult. So it comes with a blessing and a bit of a curse, but I really do see it as a blessing. I'm just being a little facetious. But so because I've cut coffee out, the caffeine, sugars, like I said, anything strong, anything potent, I used to love, like spicy foods and strong flavors, and black coffee. Like I used to drink very strong coffee on a regular basis. Now I've cut that out, and I've become more sensitive. I've become more connected with myself, my emotions, my senses, my higher self. But I have had a hard time cutting out alcohol. And I've really struggled with this for a long time. I was going to go through a sobriety program. But there was something in me that just wanted to be at peace with myself first through this, rather than being hard on myself for drinking. And I don't drink every day by any means. I used to drink a lot. I don't drink hard alcohol anymore, rarely ever. I'll have wine, and it usually is once a week or once every 2 weeks. Sometimes I might even take a month off, very rarely. But the whole point of this is, when I would drink, I would wake up in the morning feeling so bad, like I did something very wrong. I was really hard on myself. I love to stay in shape as well. I work out almost every day, and I kept feeling like, well, I'm taking like 5 steps forward and then 20 steps back, with this behavior of mine. And I was really hard on myself. And yes, I have followed all of the biohackers and neuroscientists. I get it. I understand why alcohol is really hard on the system. Drugs is as well. Drugs are as well. Smoking, especially. Like there's nothing that is actually good for the body in this realm, in this topic. Okay. So I am fully aware from a biological standpoint, the damage that alcohol has on the body. This is where I'm going to branch off a little bit, because I am coming into a new understanding around how we see and perceive our body, how we see and perceive our actions and our behaviors. And when we're going through these motions, if you have something to drink and you're really hard on yourself, or if you have a bit to smoke and you're really hard on yourself, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is, it's really important not to be hard on yourself. All right. So when we are hard on ourselves, okay, first we have to go into why we are drinking or why we are doing substances. Where is that coming from? Is it for fun? If it's for fun and if it's for pleasure, then go for it. But you can't feel guilty afterwards. You can't feel guilty during. You have to fully enjoy the pleasure and the indulgence fully. Give yourself permission to enjoy it. Okay, first one. Second is, if we are drinking or doing substances because we are not happy in our life, because we are searching for something else, because we don't feel connected with love source, we don't feel connected with the cosmos, we may have unresolved wounds or traumas within ourselves, and it's going to take very cautious effort to be aware of those feelings and actions. Then I feel that when we partake in substances, then we will damage our body more. So when we listen to the biohackers and we listen to the neuroscientists, and this is just my opinion, this is what I'm working through right now. I'm very, very, very conscious, and I've seen a lot of change happen in myself because of this. Now, I'm not saying that when I drink, it makes me feel good. The next day, it doesn't. I get a little bit of a hangover, a little tiny bit, really nothing much at all. Mostly because I've let go of the pressure of guilt and shame on myself because of doing that, because of having alcohol. That does alleviate hangovers, by the way. So I've worked through that. So if you can think of, again, as everything is energy, and when we are holding on to shame or guilt or any kind of negative pressure that we put on ourselves, we are also putting negative energy in our body. We're creating more negative energy within our body, or resistance to life flow. And if you can think of people generally speaking, who are drinking and who are doing substances, it's coming from an unconscious place, mostly. I would say the high percentage is coming from unconscious behavior. When it comes from unconscious behavior, if it is coming from a place of like I said, lack of connection, lack of, I hope a spider doesn't drop on me. I just had one drop on me just before I started this. So don't mind me if I freak out halfway through this. If someone is partaking in substances from a place of pain, of disassociation, of numbing, of searching for something more, of filling a void within the heart or within the soul, then there's going to be a perpetuated state of negative energy along with the substances, which is going to harm the body more. So if you can think of two different scenarios. One is going to be coming from a place of perpetuating a negative belief about self, about love, about life, the cosmos, our relation to source, our relation to love, life, as I mentioned. And that is triggering the addictive behavior. Or if you look over on the other side of the spectrum, there is the opportunity to indulge every now and then, which is not addictive, but it may come from a little bit of an addictive nudge, or even habitual, I would say, because sometimes this behavior can become very habitual. It's very hard to break habits, especially with food. I find anything dietary is really difficult to change, but it is not impossible. Okay. But if on the other side, if there's an indulgence for enjoyment, or I should say, an indulgence for enjoyment, then the body is going to respond to that differently, not in such a negative way of harming the body even more because of the energetic weight and pressure that is put on self, the guilt that is being carried afterwards, the maybe again shame or any kind of like destructive energy because of our behaviors is not existing in that side, right? So will it actually harm the body more if we are partaking in substances every now and then as a pleasure versus an addiction where we already have unresolved wounds and difficulties within, where we're looking for something outside to make us feel better about ourselves, and we're perpetuating in a negative state of being? That is going to harm the body more than the other, than enjoying it and indulging every now and then. So when we are in that state of perpetual, the addiction, the feeling lost, wanting something to fulfill ourselves on a very subconscious level or conscious level, then we are going to make that experience even worse within ourselves. We're going to exacerbate some of the conditions within ourselves because of what we're putting in our body, but also how we're feeling about ourselves. And so I have to go back to what I've been saying a lot in these videos, is that our subconscious belief system, how we feel about ourselves on a deep level, our shadow self, our unresolved emotions and wounds that we have deep within makes us sick. It is so hard on the body. And yes, it does also cause addictions. Going back to the neuroscientists, going back to the biohackers, a lot of content out there about don't drink, don't do substances, how the negative effects that it has on the body. I absolutely believe that is true, is valid, is based on science, there's evidence. But again, I want to go a bit deeper into why. Why do we need the feeling of substances to fulfill something on a deeper level within ourselves? That energy, that source of it, is what is causing a lot of the body issues. It's what is causing the deterioration in our body. Yes, the alcohol and substances are not helping. They aren't good for the body in general, but when we are in an addictive state, it is going to make matters worse within our body because of how we are feeling about ourselves on a core level. That is where the most of the deterioration is going to come from. Okay, and I'm not saying again, this is based on my experience. I'm not disputing science. I'm not disputing the information that is out there. I completely agree with everything that is being found and discovered and studied. But I do want to also add in that how we are feeling about ourselves creates the action of disrupting our chemistry and our body and our natural being. But a lot is going to be from our belief system, how we truly feel about ourselves. And if we are feeling detached from love, if we are not feeling love, if we've lost love, if we've never felt love, if we felt detached, if we've had traumas, if we've had negativities, if we never had our needs met, if we never had emotional connection within our family environment, then we might want to search out elsewhere to feel that because we don't know what it feels like, right? So there are many different reasons for addiction. That is one of the main ones. Then also we are going to act in a way of trying to find something, even if it's through food. It might even be eating bad food that makes us feel good for a moment, but then it's going to completely, obviously create a lot of problems within our body. But it all comes from here. It all comes from our subconscious at the very, very core of it all, the root of it all. So, are substances bad? It's up for you to determine that within yourself. And I've come to a place within myself where, yes, I do drink every now and then. I am not hard on myself. I enjoy it. I get up the next day and I continue on with my day and I do not look back. I enjoy every moment as I can, as much as possible. And so it's really important if you have a drink, if you have a smoke, if you do something because, maybe you're used to it, maybe it's habitual, enjoy it. Try not to put the pressure on yourself. Try to take the pressure off is what I was going to say. Try to take the pressure off. Ideally, yes, especially if you are wanting to have a connectedness with life, with all, enjoy a healthy, thriving body, then yes, it is going to be better without. However, if you enjoy having something in your life that you want to indulge in from time to time, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. As long as you come from the right place, as long as it's not coming from a place of a need or a crutch or, wanting to fill a void within self or boredom, and that's really important as well. So there are all these different aspects within ourselves that we do need to look at when we think of our behaviors, what is being triggered as a response in our outer world. So for instance, addictions, right? Or what we're putting in our body, for example. And when we love ourselves fully, and I've said this before in many videos, when we love ourselves fully, when we are in a state of wholeness and completion within ourselves, we'll naturally crave good food. We'll naturally not want to put bad things in our body because we are feeling whole. We're more connected with ourselves. We feel more love for ourselves, and that naturally is going to result in our behavior. How we're treating others and how we're treating ourselves. So, like I said, if you have any questions at all, please leave them here for me. You can also hit me up on my email. Feel free to connect anytime. But I do want to really reiterate this point of if you drink or if you are partaking in substances because you enjoy it, don't feel bad. And it is not going to limit your connectedness to source and to all that is. In fact, it is going through the process and being very observant and more, I feel it could connect you more with yourself in a slightly altered state of being. Now, I know it can be controversial. I get it, but I have gone through this myself and I have found peace. And I have also learned more about myself through these periods of having alcohol, and I'm not endorsing it, of course. So I just want to make that clear. But it's not all bad. And I just want to make sure that if you are enjoying your life and if you look at it as fun, as pleasure, make sure that there isn't a negative connotation or a negative feeling attached to it at all, especially afterwards or even during. So it's going to take a bit of observation if this is resonating with you, if it's something that you've gone through. But it also has, as I mentioned, it also has created a greater sense of awareness within myself going through this process of discovery to do with substances, to do with alcohol in particular. Like I said, I have had a very rocky past and I've worked my way out of a lot of substances, and now I enjoy wine every now and then, and I'm not going to be hard on myself because I am very, very connected with myself. I have a lot of compassion and love for myself. Outside of the indulgences, every now and then, I am very, very, very healthy. And so I don't see it as a bad thing. And also too, because I've done a lot of shadow work, I've done a lot of deep dive within myself. I'm very aware of my behavior, of why I do the things that I do, and also too, I also like to kick back and enjoy life every now and then. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right. So I hope this resonated with you, maybe offered you some guidance when you need it the most. I am now going to go into reading some of the passages from the book that I work through. Now, these books that I use to work with other people is intuitive. And when you hear it being read to you, it does connect with your subconscious self. So the work that I do is all subconscious work. It's all bringing the unconscious aspects within to the conscious level. So you can deepen your awareness within yourself and within your subconscious programs and within your shadow self to release from the grips of the subconscious patterns, but also to discover more about yourself. So you can break patterns, you can heal the body, and you can create a greater reality that you're desiring the most. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read some of these passages. Usually when I work one-on-one, it's a completely different experience, by the way, but I want to get some of these passages out there for you to listen to and for you to maybe even reflect within yourself if it resonates with you. Hearing this very well could release some of those patterns also. So this is under addiction. It's not alcohol. It's not smoking. It's nothing. It's just addiction in general. All right. So if you are dealing with addiction, if you find yourself going to having a go-to, and this could even be food as well, I should say. It doesn't have to be only substances. It could be food. It could be anything that you could be addicted to. That's more of an impulsive behavior towards something that is coming from an unconscious pattern. So the first one is, and usually I have someone listen to this they can have their eyes open or closed, but just connecting with the body and connecting with their subconscious self and feeling the words rather than interpreting or overanalyzing the words. Just try to feel. And so the first one is desperately seeking Susan. You are feeling terribly separated from the source, your higher self, other people, and the world. You therefore are looking for God in all the wrong places. You are in effect starved for union and merging experiences, and you have a magnificent obsession with getting high, closer to God. You are willing to sell your all to get it. You have no ability to fill this need from within yourself. There is a deep feeling of emptiness, hopelessness, and meaninglessness of life, like a profound hole inside. It is an issue of your relationship to yourself, along with resentment towards and anger at the world for not fulfilling your desires. It comes from having had a severe maternal deprivation and or rejection experience, resulting in profound sense of isolation and alienation, along with profound questions about your acceptability to God. And so in here it says, there's a deep feeling of emptiness, hopelessness, and meaninglessness of life, like a profound hole inside. It is the relationship of to yourself, along with resentment towards and anger at the world for not fulfilling your desires. And that comes from a subconscious belief, the need that we feel. And when we are young, we don't know the difference between internal love, like our capacity and ability to love ourselves fully, versus external love, because we are nurtured, we're cared for when we are very young. We come from source, we come into this form, and we're taken care of. And so when we aren't being nurtured and taken care of wholly and fully, having our needs met or having the emotional connection with our caregivers, our environment, then there's this feeling of lack and emptiness with our environment and with all that is. All right. And so it's coming back to understand that we can fulfill ourselves within ourselves fully. We don't need external validation. We don't need external situations, relationships, people to fulfill something within ourselves. It has to come from us within ourselves. And we are fully capable of being full and whole within ourselves. But this is a false belief. And so what I read here connects with the subconscious self. It connects with the subconscious self because it triggers a false belief that is buried deep within. And that false belief is it creates the action towards the addiction, right? I believe that there's meaningless, I have no meaning in life. I have a profound hole inside that needs to be fulfilled. So then the addiction kicks in to fill that hole that is coming from our subconscious belief that actually exists within ourselves. All right, so I'm going to read two more. And then again, if it resonates with you, then great. And it's also good just for self-observation, even if it's not addiction that you are working through. It might just create awareness on some kind of level, maybe within a different aspect within yourself. So the next one is self-avoidance. You are running from yourself as you desperately avoid contact with your inner self due to a fear of what might be inside. You have a real inability to cope with life situations and a firm belief that you are being dominated and exploited. There is a deep-seated feeling of failure in some specific life areas, and you are full of fear-based weakness effects. You do not know how to handle life and how to love yourself. You were largely ignored until you joined your dysfunctional family's demoralizing and debilitating lifestyle. And when dysfunctional family is mentioned in here, this is not saying anything bad about your family. This is saying that all families are dysfunctional, have some level of dysfunctionality. It could be even the lack of love, the lack of connection. So on any kind of level, right? So when it says here, you were largely ignored until you joined your dysfunctional family's demoralizing and debilitating lifestyle, it could be on any level. It doesn't have to be to do with substances either. Okay, it could be in any kind of way, just fitting in, trying to find your way to fit in so that there is no more conflict. You know, if you are different, if you see the world differently, if you love differently, if you work or operate differently, then you start to lose yourself, your true self, when you start to form into other people's ways of being. And so that can create a hole within ourselves because we're not honoring our true self. But again, when we're young, we don't know, right? And so it becomes part of our core being growing older. Okay, so I'm going to do one more. This is the final one. And it is self-medication. You are seeking to dull the pain of how life is for you and or to get through the night somehow. You have been exposed to a continuous barrage of relief-seeking activities by your family and in the culture, and you are a vigorous participant in the process. It is a systematic avoidance of facing and healing the underlying destructive dysfunctionality that runs your life. It got started in an equally dysfunctional family, and you are just the next generation. And yeah, this is also a practice of breaking cycles. So if it resonates with you on a level of cultural influences, and remember, addictions can be anything. It also can be self-avoidance, as this one mentions, self-avoidance or avoiding reality altogether. So if you had a family history where there was a lack of accountability or awareness of selves within that family dynamic between each other or the reality as a whole, and people would just numb out or avoid or turn to addictive behavior of any kind, then that also could apply. All right, so I'm going to leave it here. Thank you very much for staying until the end. And I'm wishing you all the best with your healing transformative journey. If you have any questions or if you would like one-on-one help, just send me an email and let me know. And I love to hear from you regardless. So I'm wishing you all the best. Until next time, I'll be seeing you soon, and take care.